Hello everybody, welcome to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabaz, and as ever, I am the IT Geek. Welcome everybody to this is the second episode in the privileged identity topic, and we're literally 3 more episodes left, including this one. So we've got one more topic after this on monitoring as your AD, and that'll be the end. So we've got literally one more video drop after this. So very emotional, very sad, but really happy with how the series has gone. It's been very intense. We're almost at 40 videos. We've dropped this month. A lot of hard work with me and Dwayne. So I want to thank Dwayne for all his hard work. Obviously, he's not with me for this particular episode, but we will be together back for the final 2 episodes. So that'll be really great to finish off with Dwayne. Thank you everybody for your ongoing support. Let's get started with this episode though. And as I mentioned, we're still on module 4, and we are still talking about planning and implementing identity governance in Azure AD. And as I mentioned, we are on part 2 of the implementing privileged access topic. And we're going to talk about managing PIM requests and approval processes. We'll look at analysing PIM audit history and reports. We'll touch on creating and managing break glass accounts, but then I'll hand over to Dwayne to actually show you how to implement those, okay? So let's talk about managing PIM requests and approval processes. As a request or approval, you can essentially approve or deny requests. And you can do that for Azure AD roles in PIM, as we spoke about in the last episode, or Azure roles in PIM, and also privileged access groups in PIM as well. So we kind of touched on this in the last episode already. So I'll talk about, again, managing PIM requests and approval process. So with privileged identity management, or aka PIM, in Azure AD, which is part of obviously Microsoft Entra, you can configure roles to require approval for activation and choose one or multiple users or groups as delegated approvers. Delegated approvers, they have 24 hours to approve those requests. If a request is not approved within those 24 hours, then that eligible user, they have to resubmit that request. And then the 24-hour approval time window is then kind of is not configurable. You can't change that. That's set in stone. As a delegated approver, you'll receive an email notification when a user, when an Azure AD role request is pending your approval. So you can view these pending requests in the privileged identity management part of the portal. You can also view pending requests using Microsoft Graph API, and you can approve requests via the Azure portal when you need to as well, and enter a sort of business justification for that. And the same way, you can also deny requests, and you can again put in a business justification for why you're denying it. Keep it on with this topic. That there's some information that I want to go through around sort of the workflow notifications. So first of all, approvers are notified by email, as I mentioned in the previous slide, when a request for a role is pending their review. That email notification includes a direct link to that request, and the approver can then approve or deny, as we mentioned. Requests are resolved by the first approver who approves or denies it. And when that approver responds to the request, all approvers are notified of the action. And finally, global admins and privileged role admins are notified when an approved user becomes active in their role. So all global admins administrators get that notification. Let's talk about analysing PIM audit history and reports now. So with PIM, you can view activity, you can view activations. You can also view audit history for Azure Privileged Access Group members and owners within your Azure AD tenant and organization. If your organization has outsourced management functions to like a service provider who uses delegate sort of resource management, role assignments authorized by that service provider won't be shown in this section in the sort of audit history and report. So just one thing to note there. So again, I just want to touch on creating and managing break glass accounts. Some scenarios really I want to talk about. So an organization might need to use an emergency access account in sort of the following sort of situations. user accounts that are federated, and federation is sort of currently unavailable because of, it might be a network break or, God forbid, an identity provider outage. So an example of this is the identity provider host in your environment has gone down. Users might be unable to sign in when that Azure AD redirects them to that identity provider. So this is sort of a scenario where you'd want to use a break glass account. Another scenario is where administrators are registered through an Azure AD MFA. All their individual devices are unavailable or the service is unavailable. Users might be unable to complete that MFA to activate their role. So like an example of network outage is preventing them from sort of answering any phone calls on their mobile or receiving any text messages. Especially when these authentication methods are kind of only two authentication mechanisms that are registered. Another sort of break glass scenario is, the person with the most recent global admin access. They've left the organization, for example. Azure already prevents the last global admin account from being deleted, but it doesn't prevent the account from being deleted or disabled on premises. Either situation might kind of make the organization unable to recover that account. Finally, this is obviously out of everybody's hands, sort of unforeseen circumstances such as a natural disaster kind of emergency during which mobile phone and other networks might be unavailable. So this is a bit of a shorter episode because again, I wanted to spend a bit more time on the demo, and this is where Dwayne is going to be going through creating sort of break glass accounts and sort of how we manage those. So I'll hand over to you, Dwayne.
Thank you very much, Shabaz, and let's get into the demo of setting up a break glass or emergency account. So this is a little bit different because what we're creating here is we're creating a privileged role and a privileged user, but there's certain things and certain parameters that we need to think about when we're doing that. And key thing there is we're giving these users essentially a global admin role, but we are we cannot we do not want to have certain things, like we don't want multi-factor authentication as part of that. So if I go to this emergency admin account that I have here, it doesn't have any eligible assignments or active assignments right now. So one of the things that an emergency admin account needs to have is they need to have that assignment, and they need really to have that assignment as a permanent assignment, and really as a global administrator, and we need to make sure that that this one is a permanent assignment, and and it's eligible or active permanently. Typically it's a permanently active assignment. So and the reason for this, and the reason we have these accounts, is if something happens to our global administrators, and now hopefully we don't have that happen, because we've gone and used the good practice of having 3 to 5 of those, no less than 3, no more than 5 global administrators. So we have those global administrators. But if something happens that we have something take place that that has eliminated those users, or those users for some reason don't have access anymore, maybe some tragedies happen and they've all lost their phones and they can't use MFA. That's what these emergency accounts are for. That's why they're called break glass accounts. Just like you see on a fire extinguisher, in case of emergency, break glass to get access to this fire extinguisher. That's really, if these accounts are being used, something catastrophic has happened within your organization. So we need to gain access to our resources at the global administrator level to do something, to lock things down, or maybe we've had some sort of catastrophe in one of our regions and we need to redirect resources, and somebody needs to take that into account. And the information around your emergency accounts should be drafted in your business continuity and disaster recovery planning, and how these are accessed, where the passwords are, and what needs to take place, and who is going to handle that. should all be documented within your incident response, for business continuity and disaster recovery. So these accounts, when you create these accounts, you need to create these accounts so they don't have, so they've got a strong password that, and generally what I do for these accounts is I'll use some sort of password generator. We don't want that when we create the account. So if I go back to my users and I create a new user here, what we want to make sure when we set up and create their password, we want to make sure that that we aren't resetting their password when they log in the first time. So we're going to uncheck that box. We're going to make sure that it does not fall under the responsibilities of MFA. So that's why within the settings we need to make sure that that role does not require MFA. We want to enforce it for all of our global administrators usually, but we don't want it to be an underlying setting and requirement for that role upon activation. So we're gonna forego that, and that's why we need to make sure we're using a strong generated password that we're locking up somewhere. And that, like I said, the disaster recovery and business continuity plans should have that all taking place. So so that that's what we're going to do. We're going to create that user as I've created already an emergency admin user, and then we're going to assign that administrator that role. We've got and we've got I got this user now that is the emergency user. And like I said, another piece of the puzzle here too is that you're going to want to use your onmicrosoft.com account as the account that you set that user up on. So we're going to set that user up, and we're going to change this to the .onmicrosoft account as well. So that's some key things to note when we're setting this up, because what we don't want to have is that our custom domain is not working on our tenant, or that's expired, or something like that has happened. As we covered probably way back in video 1, the .onmicrosoft.com account is created on your tenant. It's a usable domain, and it's a domain that's always there for the life of your tenant. So those are all things to take into account. And as you create your user, you're going to create that user just as you create any user. But like I said, you're going to create a role. You're going to give it the role of global admin, and you're going to go from there. Just as you create any user, but again, taking into account those key pieces that I brought up as we were walking through there. So that hopefully gets you comfortable with break glass accounts or emergency accounts. Not a whole lot to know in terms of like an exam tip around a break glass account, except for kind of those key things. Do not use a custom domain. Should use a strong password. Don't use MFA on that user as well. So those are some key things around emergency break glass accounts. You don't necessarily need to go through the steps to creating that for the exam, but just some key things around why that user is important, why creating this account is potentially needed for disaster recovery and business continuity. So that ends that quick walkthrough and demo on emergency break glass accounts. I will pass it back to you, Shabaz. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Another great demo, and this time around break glass accounts, how to create those and manage those. Again, just kind of follows on from what we're talking about in this episode. So that is the end of the sort of privileged access sort of topic. 2 episodes, covered quite a bit of information in there. And we're going to be on the last topic in the next few episodes, which is going to be monitoring Azure AD. So Dwayne will be back with me for that. We'll be recording together, so we'll be going out with a bang. But just wanted to touch on some of the links in the description, which you can get. A link to both mine and Dwayne's socials, so Twitter and LinkedIn. Also, the most important link, a link to Dwayne's book that he authored on the SC300 exam, which was published by Pact. So yeah, please do buy a copy of that. It'll really complement this course and help you maybe fill in some of the gaps that that, again, with it being smaller videos, can't, there's only a certain amount we can talk about. Try to touch on every topic if we can, but if there's any sort of topics where you want more information, that book will cover it. And also a link to the GitHub labs as well, so be sure to check those out. So yeah, thank you everybody for your support, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the final episodes. So up until next time, thank you and goodbye.